How important is workplace culture for your salon business? I get this question all the time. I've got the perfect person here today to answer this question. We're going to get right into this right now on the Biz Talk. Super excited to have Maribel Lara here today. Maribel comes from VaynerMedia. She worked at the office of the CEO, Gary Vaynerchuk, correct?
Yes.
If you don't know who that is, you've got to check out Gary V. Today, she is Senior Vice President, Head of Consulting at the Sasha Group. Maribel, really appreciate you being here today.
Thanks for having me.
One of the things at the Sasha Group and VaynerMedia I know is culture.
Yeah.
I know this is we hear content all the time from Gary Vaynerchuk on how important culture is. We believe that here at Young Nails. We have a very unique company culture. I get questions all the time from salons. They're constantly DMing us, asking, how do I build a good culture in the salon?
Right.
And I think you're the perfect person to address this.
Okay.
So
no pressure.
No pressure at all. Don't worry about it. First of all, how would a salon go about building just a solid salon culture? What can they do?
So one, I think, is making a commitment to what the culture is,
Okay.
right? And establishing who are the people that are going to be there, who's the owner, who are the people that are going to be there day in and day out, and those need to be the culture leaders.
Okay.
But you also need to live that. So if you're saying you're trying to build a culture that's not toxic, then you yourself can't engage in gossip.
Right.
Right? Then you yourself need to be empathetic in how you give people feedback. One of the dynamics that I think about when we're talking about salons is the fact that it is an open environment, right?
Very.
We have our environment at the Sasha Group, the environment at VaynerMedia, all of these are open offices. So one is when you just think about the conversations that happen in those spaces
Right.
and happen publicly, right? Thinking about, you want to be able to give somebody feedback. So
Right.
feedback is important. It's important to give feedback that's constructive. So not letting things slide, right? Because I understand that in wanting to build a good business.
Right.
But there's a way to give feedback that's not derogatory, that's all about the tone. If you're looking to keep somebody there, then it's adding a nurturing tone.
Right.
Right? This is about, I'm giving you feedback because I see the potential in you.
Right.
And I want you to be better versus taking the opportunity to give feedback and doing it in a negative way, something that's meant to break someone down.
How does somebody balance? So here's the one thing that I know I can struggle with, but giving empathy and care to your team,
Mm-hmm.
but at the same time, how do you balance that with not letting people run over you?
Oh, yeah.
Right? Because that can be easily mistaken, oh, they're really nice. I'm going to take advantage of this. I'm going to take advantage of this. But building that culture of there is that true care.
Right.
But where people also understand that, this is a work environment.
Right.
And, there's a certain level of maybe professionalism that has to happen. And what's that line?
Right. So I think part of it happens, right? There's always something that happens that it really crosses the line.
Sure.
And, that is something that has to be addressed. I think people show you who they are really early on, and you probably see signs of that at the beginning. And the longer they've been with your company, the more comfortable they get in
Right.
showing their colors.
Sure.
So part of the process is really getting to know people from the beginning. Part of the process is as you interview people and consider them coming in, really think about ask questions about culture or ask questions that will get to the core of that person.
Sure.
And what they're bringing into them, right? If you're trying to build a positive culture, then the interview conversation should include a conversation about it.
Yeah.
Hey, this place is a special place. What we are trying to build is something that is counter to what you've probably encountered at most of the other salons you've worked at. Here, we don't accept gossip, right? Here, we want people to be here for the long term. You're probably used to being at a salon and being out in 3 to 6 months.
Right.
We want people that are going to be here 5 to 10 years, maybe 20 years. If you want to be part of that, right? If you want to be part of creating something that is counter to what we are used to in this industry, then we want you here. Like imagine, like how does that change who you're probably going to bring in?
First of all, having that conversation up front is
so
important, right? Like so important. Second, like what you're actually going to do and how you're going to change, especially with the typical sort of like salon vibe as it is now. You know what I mean? And somebody that wants to really change culture, you can have a massive impact on the industry.
Right.
If you're asking those questions, I think that's so key.
It's all about how you treat people. So I'll give you an example. When I went to VaynerMedia, right? So when I started, it was only VaynerMedia. There was no VaynerX, no other companies under it. What sold me on my first interview was the person that I interviewed with. I asked him, I was trying to investigate the culture. When I went to my next place, it was going to be a cultural decision. I was looking for home.
Yeah.
Right? We talked about this earlier. You spend more time at your workplace than you do in your own homes. So you should care who you're spending time with.
Of course.
Right? Like I see it as I'm going to go work at this place and I'm giving them a part of me. So I want to make sure that they deserve it.
Right, of course.
And so the question I asked this individual was, what are you most proud of in the time that you have been here? And the person had been at the company 3 years at that point. And they said, the development that I've seen in the people I've worked with.
Very interesting.
What is that, right? Like what that told me about the culture said that sales, right? Like bringing in clients or selling a campaign was not the most important thing to him. But what does it say about the company that is the person they put in front of me to interview me, right? What that told me was like they valued that attitude.
Right.
And so that interview is such an important time. It's the first opportunity you have to vet whether or not someone's going to contribute to your culture or be counter to your culture in a bad way.
If you had to rate culture, like, so in a company, there's obviously there's sales, service, like in a salon, culture, where would it like really rate for you?
I think number one.
Yeah.
Right? Like the second a culture doesn't fuel me, doesn't feed my soul, it's time to go.
Yeah.
Because I think that's when you start waking up in the morning and you're dreading going to work.
I know people would come across a situation where they might have an opportunity somewhere to make more money, you know, but then there's an opportunity to where there's a place where they love the culture, but it's less money. Like, is it, I think first decision is like, well, if I make more money, I'm going to be more comfortable financially. That's going to make me happier. Where would you sort of like, how would you navigate that?
It's a personal decision, but personally, money is not the most important thing because you pay a price emotionally, like physically, when you hate where you work, which is a possibility, right? So like when you make the decision of, I'm not going to make this a cultural decision, this is going to be a financial decision, you recognize that might bring with it a culture that is not a great fit for you. That eventually in the long term can manifest itself in stress.
Right.
Which has then physical manifestation.
Totally.
It's like, that's a serious price. It's not a monetary one, but it's a price I'm not willing to pay.
Yeah.
I'd much rather stay at the place that like continues to fuel me. I'd much rather be in a position where I'm happy to wake up in the morning, where I'm like eager to get to work.
Right.
Like that's such an amazing feeling. Like when you're freaking exhausted, but like you still wake up on 4 hours sleep because you're like, I have great things to do today, or like I'm gonna have a phenomenal conversation today. Like that's an amazing feeling.
You know, one of the things I love hearing here is, and this is not me asking our team or our employees here, but other people will ask, or they'll just volunteer the information and say, this is the first place where I actually enjoy coming to work every single day.
Yeah.
And when I hear that, it's so big, you know, like it means that myself and my brother and my mom are setting the correct tone for the company, you know, and that we're providing a place where people are genuinely happy to come to work every day. And then we see it in performance, like
Absolutely.
how that affects performance.
People
It's
just
crazy.
become more efficient in the
Right.
job that they do. They're capable of taking on more. What it means in the day-to-day operations of the business is that you're not constantly dealing with trying to fill roles.
Right.
And that is time that you're able to put against growing the business.
Yeah.
Right. And bringing on new people because the business has grown, not bringing on new people because you're constantly trying to replace the people that have gone out the door.
And on that point, one of the major issues that we see in the salon industry with nails is the turnover is so insanely high. I get questions all the time, like, how do I keep
Yeah.
how do I keep my team? How do I keep my team of nail pros? I'm afraid they're going to be here for a year and they're going to leave and go start their own. I'm afraid.
Make it a place that people don't want to leave. But the other thing is, like, you have to let go of the fear.
Right.
Right? Because if you're constantly putting the energy into being fearful of people
Yeah.
leaving rather than putting the energy into building the place that people won't want to leave,
Yeah.
that you're getting it wrong.
I agree with you. And I think people leaving is inevitable at every business.
Of course, people's family situations
Sure.
change, right? Like, look, some people will have to leave for the money because
course.
their life situation at a certain stage is such that that matters most.
Right.
We've all been in those situations,
Totally.
right? As much as culture is important right now, I have had phases in my life where money was the most important
Right.
thing.
Of course.
It's a blessing that it doesn't have to be right now.
Of course. And you can't, like, having fear about that is so pointless because no matter what you say or do or how great the culture is,
Yeah.
if somebody's got to go, they've got to go, and you
Right.
can't control that. But I love what you're saying is, like, build a place where people want to stay.
Right.
And I think you're going to have the amount of turnover that you're going to experience is going to be very, very low.
Yes.
Comparatively speaking to other salons.
And I think the other thing is so often culture gets confused with like free snacks
Right.
and events for your staff.
Right.
We do happy hour every week. Like
Right.
that's not culture.
Right.
Right.
This is great. Yeah.
Like
I love this.
the culture is actually the relationships that you have with the people
Right.
who are there. It is how you treat people at its core. It is like the humanistic,
Yeah.
like how you value humans.
Right.
Right? Treating them like human beings, not treating them like a resource, not treating them like something that is disposable.
Right. Right.
It's
Absolutely.
it's not all the fluffy stuff. Like those are fun, but those don't actually work if you haven't done the foundational
Yeah.
culture building.
You know, I've had in the past, I've had managers where I've seen them unload on one of our team members, right? Like, we have a large warehouse component here, very hardworking, amazing people that just get the products filled, packed, shipped like well every single day. I've seen managers talk down to people, and I instantly, for me, that's you gotta go, right? Because like, and I always say this to our team is these are people.
Yeah.
Like, we're people.
Absolutely.
You
have to be respectful.
That's like the biggest thing is respect. Like, I communicate respectfully. I don't care if you're putting a cap on one of our jars, right? That's like, you're contributing to this company in a way like I don't even know if they even understand their contribution. It's
Right.
huge. But this is a hardworking person that's coming here every day. It's a person with a family that's making a living. And like, you got to be respectful. And that's the biggest thing for me here. Like, we have meetings constantly on
Right.
just like respect level here at Young Nails is so huge. And I think that very quickly can people can get confused about that.
Yeah,
You know?
I think there are signs too, right, that you're starting to build the right type of culture. If you're building a culture that is a positive one, what you'll start to see is people will come to you and say like, hey, I'm having an off time right now because there's stuff happening in my life.
Right.
Like, here's what's happening, and I just wanted to let you know that is happening. When you get people start
Right.
to come to you and tell you what's
Right.
going on for them,
Yeah.
and then that informs you on like why things are a bit off, like
Yeah.
why they've been late this week, then you know you're doing something right.
Yeah, absolutely.
If nobody ever comes to you
Yeah.
and shares that kind of information with you, it's because you haven't done enough to communicate that you are open to that.
Right. Absolutely. And even if like I've communicated so many times, like, okay, we have open door policy. If you have an issue, you can come to me anytime.
Right.
Even communicating that, it's still hard for people to open up. And so when they do, like, it's like, okay, we've got a great communication stream going on, because it's not easy for people to open up, even when you tell them it's okay to do so.
Well, you have to role model it.
Right, for sure.
Right.
For
so
sure.
Whenever I've built teams, part of the way you do that. So I'll give you an example. Again, when I first started at Vayner, I inherited this pretty robust team on a pretty big account that we were running. And I was actually told from the very beginning that there was sort of this schism in the team that I inherited, that the folks who were on the account side and the folks who were on the creative side didn't function as one holistic team.
Sure.
So like that was my main goal when I first went in there. And part of how you do that is to role model it. So I'll give you an example. Balance is really important to me. And I wanted people to know that they could come to me and say like, hey, I need to take this day off because I'm stressed out. And so one of the first things I did on that team was let them know like, hey, balance is really important to me. One of the things you guys will see is I'm going to leave every day and aim to be home between 7 and 7:30, because one of the things that is important to me is sitting down to dinner with my husband.
That's great.
What does it tell people when the person that has just come in and is setting the tone for this team says it's okay to want to have some balance, right? And then the other thing that came with that is like, hey, if there's still work to be done, then I'm going to get on my computer once I'm done with dinner and like I'll do some work. Then that's how I function.
Yeah, totally.
So if you guys have things that you need to do to manage your workload in a way that makes sense for you, just make sure you let me know.
Yeah, I absolutely love that. Like that type of communication, everybody's needs are going to be different.
Yep.
Company culture it ultimately does start at the top, right? And if you're starting a salon or you have a salon, you want to build culture, you've got to start with you. And I think you addressed a lot of what's important in the very beginning of this.
Yeah.
If you want to differentiate your salon, I think it's a massive, the number one key is culture. And if you do it successfully, you're going to have an amazing place that everybody is going to work at, and your turnover is going to be less. And it's going to be unique, because salon culture right now really needs kind of a makeover.
It'll also help your business.
For sure.
Right? Because I would want to go back to the salon where I know the next time I'm going to see the same people.
Right, exactly. Imagine the customers too, when they come in, they're going to feel that vibe, right?
Trust builds over time.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, exactly.
So if people aren't there long enough, why should anyone trust or have loyalty to your salon?
Absolutely. Maribel, thank you so much for coming on here and talking about your experience. I know the whole Vayner family and every department culture is a top key.
Absolutely.
So I appreciate you being here and talking about it.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you guys for joining us this week, and we will see you next week on the Biz Talk.